Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick930, and this is my review for Hours of Darkness, the Vietnam-themed expansion to Ubisoft's open-world shooter game, Far Cry 5. In Hours of Darkness, you play as Wendell Redler, an American soldier during the Vietnam War that crash-lands in the jungles behind enemy lines. Redler is soon captured by the Viet Cong, and after an American napalm strike, manages to escape. It's at this point that the player takes control, and is given free reign of a large jungle valley filled with your standard open-world filler content. There's multiple Viet Cong outposts you can capture, some propaganda towers to climb and disable, collectible lighters to find on dead American paratroopers, and high-value targets to eliminate. You can also find members of your own squad captured in certain locations. Rescuing these squad members will let you make use of Far Cry 5's AI companion system, allowing you to send them to attack certain targets or hold strategic locations. But what's interesting about Hours of Darkness is that the game seems to punish you significantly for being reckless. Unlike the past several Far Cry games, you are actually alone in this one. There's no local militants to randomly assist you or safe houses to secure. Even if you capture an outpost, it won't populate with friendly soldiers. You won't even get access to any sort of weapons store. You're instead forced to switch your weapons on the fly and deal with whatever attachments are already equipped on them. You're given access to some other useful tools like explosives, throwing knives, a bamboo stick, and even the ability to call in airstrikes. Airstrikes can be called in using your binoculars, and are only available if the area is clear of anti-aircraft guns. Destroying these guns, or completing any other objectives in the valley, will award you with airstrike tokens, which can be used to call in a single bombardment. You can call in a chain of these bombardments if you really want to make a mess, but I found myself never getting much use out of them until the finale. Your squad members, if killed in battle, will never respawn, so while keeping them around will give you a serious advantage in a large fight, it's also risky and can hurt your overall score at the end of the expansion. This worked much better than the respawning companion system in the base game. I actually felt responsible for keeping these characters alive to some degree, even if I could technically just hide them in my menu if I felt like they were in danger. But I felt it would be more fun to keep them following me around after I rescued them, and it ended up making for a much cooler, free-form narrative experience. As I progressed through the valley, I lost 2 of my squad members in intense firefights, and the ending felt significantly more desperate as me and my last squad member fought to the last bullet as we repelled attacking waves of Viet Cong. The experience was much different than I expected. The title Hours of Darkness is much more literal than I anticipated. The entire experience takes place over the course of a single night, and the further you progress through the valley, the closer the sun gets to rising. It's kind of a shame we don't get to see this huge jungle valley properly illuminated in the broad daylight, but it did feel like a much more cohesive, meaningful experience this way, rather than just throwing in a small open-world sandbox letting us goof around for a few minutes. Funneling players through a valley of outposts, camps, and villages worked great, and I felt like this expansion had significantly better pacing and overall map design than the base game. The experience felt far more rewarding and meaningful, and Far Cry 5's mechanics feel more relevant in a war setting than they do in the American countryside. Seeing a large group of Viet Cong marching through the jungle in all directions was more intimidating than a bunch of bearded cult members, and the whole Rambo 2 style atmosphere is absolutely nailed in this experience. Hours of Darkness seems to emphasize stealth quite a bit. If you chain together enough stealth kills without being spotted, you're given a few preset perks that grant you passive abilities, like the Ghost perk, which reduces the noise you make when you're running around, or the Predator perk that lets you tag enemies through the walls. Once you're spotted, these perks are reset, and you may also find yourself facing a ton of reinforcements. In some cases, it felt like the Viet Cong just would never stop coming from every direction. And stealthy weapons like the silenced pistol or the bow are actually kind of rare, so expect more to come running as you try and kill them with your machine guns. I think this was a good move, as it encourages the stealthy approach more, but gives an actual reason without being too restrictive. Sure, you can go guns blazing, but you need to be prepared for the consequences, and make sure you're armored up, have enough ammo, and have enough backup. And this is something that I feel Far Cry 5 did poorly, as you never feel like you're at a disadvantage. You can always run to a nearby store, buy all the ammo you need, and it really removes the sense of desperation that made the original Far Cry so good. But there were a few things I do wish were still featured in this DLC. I'm surprised this huge valley filled with the Viet Cong had absolutely 0 traps. The Viet Cong were known for their brutal traps, and I expected to see at least a landmine or 2. The entire jungle is just that, an empty jungle. There's a few goats, water buffalo, and an occasional panther, but aside from that, it feels pretty empty. The Viet Cong themselves were all armed with what you'd expect: AKs, old SMGs, rocket launchers, and SVDs. But I feel like there could have been more weapons added to the experience. There were no RPD LMGs or MAC-10s, and I was surprised to not see a single armored vehicle. There's a few new large trucks, but they controlled terribly, and for some reason my AI felt the passenger seat would be a more useful seat to sit in than the huge 50 cal machine gun in the back, so I never really got much use out of them. Overall, I think this is a very cool expansion that does a great job of taking advantage of Far Cry's stealth gameplay, and unique and interesting setting, and putting enough open world content without being overwhelming. Instead of mindlessly clearing an open world map for no reason other than to see the map look cleaner, I would explore enemy outposts to benefit my playstyle. Taking out anti-air guns, saving my squad members, and taking revenge on those Viet Cong leaders was probably the most fun I've had with this franchise since Far Cry 3. And sure, this expansion is short, very short even. It took me only an hour and a half to complete my playthrough, but it is short enough that it's worth replaying, maybe even in co-op with a friend. And Ubisoft even threw in some Vietnam-era weapons into the base game. So the Season Pass is $30 now, and this is only part 1 of 3 expansions planned for the game. I definitely recommend trying this out if you're a big Far Cry fan. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel for more content posted every week.